A video game giant commits the ultimate betrayal, and for one scorned company, revenge is about to be served. Let's take a look at the Sony PlayStation.
Are we enjoying ourselves today, folks?
Well, if drinking white wine out of a 4-ounce glass is your idea of enjoyment, see, it's white wine in a 3-ounce glass, red in a 4.
Hey, you with the goatee! 2 words for you, pal. Lighten up. Frenchie, I need an extension cord and some buffalo wings. Go. Au revoir. Raising the roof with the coot. How you doing? Who's bored? Raise your hand. Anybody? Look who's happy now.
PlayStation.
What's up guys, Linux Fan Man here. So today we're going to be looking at the PlayStation console, or better known as the PlayStation 1. We'll be taking a look at the history of the console, how it was developed, and that kind of thing. We'll be looking inside of it, looking at the motherboards and the chips, and basically kind of finding out how it works and what they do. Then we'll be taking a look at the actual console itself, and then we'll power it up, plug it in, power it up, and do a little bit of gameplay as well to show you guys how it works. So let's go ahead and take a look, guys.
The PlayStation story starts with Ken Kutungari, or better known as the father of the PlayStation. Kutungari worked behind the scenes with Nintendo to strike a deal to use the SBC 700 sound processor in the new Super Nintendo Entertainment System. But Sony executives found out about this and almost fired him over it, but they decided to keep him on as a protege because the deal was just so damn successful. This started a working relationship with Sony, and Nintendo decided to contract Sony out to build a CD add-on system for the Super Nintendo. Sony was very eager to get into the gaming market because they saw the profit that was being made by Nintendo and Sega at the time. So to secure maximum profits after they developed the SNES CD, or codenamed PlayStation, Sony now was demanding all rights to the games being made on the new CD extension. This would also transfer over to the Super Nintendo cartridges if they were being used in conjunction with the CD system as well. Now, 3 years had went by, and it was 1991 at the CES show. Nintendo was announcing their partnership with Sony to create the CD add-on extension system. Nintendo actually made this announcement, but afterwards struck a deal with Philips to make the CD extension for Nintendo. The next day at the CES show, this was announced. Folks in the gaming world were just shocked by this news, as their partnership had been going on for over 3 years now. It was a total betrayal on Nintendo's part, but Nintendo did not want to lose control over their licensing of their games to another company. Sony and Nintendo continued to work together to supply the chips for the console, but really after this there was no more business done between the two companies, and by this time Sony had developed a standalone version of the PlayStation which was capable of taking Super Nintendo cartridges. But Nintendo would allow them to use it if they wanted and release the console, but Sony actually decided against it because the Sony suits were just kind of rethinking their strategy on the video games. They were really thinking about pulling out of the video game market. But with successful shifting of certain divisions like the music division and then them creating the Sony Computer Entertainment division, they started developing a new PlayStation console with better graphic capabilities such as polygon 3D graphics. And they really wanted to distance this new console from the failed attempt that they had with Nintendo. So the project was called PlayStation X, or PSX. In 1993, Sony decided to go out to several gaming companies to try to promote their new system. Sony at this time didn't have any in-house development, so they had to rely on third-party developers for their games. But the technical details of the PlayStation and how easy it was to basically develop on, several companies decided to jump on board with Sony, including Namco, Konami, and Williams. But Sony needed to have its own in-house development team too. So also in 1993, Sony acquired Psygnosis, and I know all you Amiga guys out there know who Psygnosis is. Psygnosis was later renamed SCE Liverpool. Once Sony purchased Psygnosis, they had a team of over 500 people developing games for them. Although the system was easy to develop for, the development system that Sony had created was not, and the folks at Psygnosis did not like it, and they wanted something that was PC-based instead, something that they were familiar with. So Sony teamed up with a company named SN Systems, and they did develop the cards and software for the development system. And with this, there was PC interconnectivity, and being able to program in C and compile in GCC made development very easy. So the PlayStation launched in Japan on December 3rd, 1994, in North America on September 9th, 1995, and in Europe on September 29th, 1995. During and after the launch of the PlayStation, Sony tried a different marketing technique than any other video game manufacturer had tried before. Instead of marketing its game console to kids, it was marketing it towards adults. Sony's logic to this was sound, seeing that a generation of gamers, Generation X basically, that grew up with Atari and Nintendo were now adults and had expendable cash. And by differentiating their console as not being toy-like the Nintendo or Sega, adults had cash in hand and ready to go ahead and pay for it, while children didn't. And so it made the sale of the PlayStation just skyrocket. Through its lifespan, PlayStation had several different models, most of which looked the same. But in the year 2000, Sony launched the PS1 as a cost-reduced miniature version of the console. It actually outsold the PlayStation 2 for the first 2 years the PlayStation 2 was out. The console enjoyed a successful 12-year run, with it being discontinued in 2006. And basically, it was 102 million units that were sold worldwide, so it definitely made it one of the most successful video game consoles in history.
And what do you want this year, son?
I want a bicycle.
A bicycle?
A bike?
Well, would you prefer something like cool borders?
I want a bicycle.
No, you want jet moto. That's what you want.
I want a bicycle.
Siphon filter? What about twisted metal? You'd like that, wouldn't you?
I want a bicycle.
Look, kid, do it for Santa. Okay, take it.
I hate mall Santas.
So the next thing we're going to take a look at is the internals of the PlayStation 1. We're going to start off with the motherboards. So there are several different models of PlayStation. So you have the 1000, 3000, 5000, 7000, and 9000 series. And with the smaller PS1, you have the 100 series models. Now you could go by the model numbers on the motherboard for identification, but really that's not the correct way to do it. Each motherboard has a number printed on it, starting with a PU or a PM. And this is truly the way to determine the differences in the motherboards. The first version of the motherboard was the PU7 from 94 to 95. Then came the PU8 from 95 to 96, followed by the PU16 and PU18 from 96 to 97. Then came the PU20 from 97 to 98. From 98 to 99 was the PU22, and from 1999 to 2000 was the PU23. In 2000, Sony released the PS1, a smaller, cost-reduced version of its PS1 motherboard, and it was the PM41, and it ran from the year 2000 until its discontinuation in 2006. All of these motherboards have 4 chips that we'll be talking about. Unlike the PlayStation 2, where the cost-reduced version put 3 chips onto one for the slim model, they didn't do that with the PlayStation. All of the chips are actually on even the PS1, the smaller model.
Alright guys, I did want to say one more thing. So at the very end of this video here, I am going to post basically the instructions on how to install an MM3 mod chip on each revision of the motherboard. Every one of those PU revisions that we went over just now. At the end of the video, it'll show where every one of the pinouts would go on the section of the motherboard to be able to basically mod your PlayStation to be able to play either backup copies or other region games. So take a look at that at the end of the video if you're interested in that. It'll go through every motherboard and show you where those solder points are on the board. All right, guys.
The first chip that we're going to talk about is the CPU. This was a 32-bit RISC CPU, and it's MIPS R3051 with 5 kilobytes of level 1 cache running at 33.86 megahertz. The processor was made by LSI Logic Corp, and its operating performance was 30 MIPS. So what that means is millions of instructions per second. It had a bus bandwidth of 132 megabytes and had an ALU and one shifter. The CPU's cache was divided into 4 kilobytes of instruction cache and 1 kilobyte of non-associative SRAM data cache. Also within the die of the processor, it had a geometry transformation engine, or GTE. This gave the processor additional math vector instructions used for 3D graphics, lighting, and geometry of polygons. It ran at 66 MIPS and produced up to 360,000 polygons per second with flat shading, or as low as 90,000 polygons per second with texture mapping, lighting, and shading. Also on the die was a motion decoder that ran at 80 MIPS, and this was basically for full motion video playback. As you can tell, the PlayStation had way better FMV playback than like the Saturn had, and this is basically why, because it had that motion decoder. The last thing on the CPU die is the system control coprocessor. It was modified from the R3000A architecture of the RISC processor with the addition of a few new registers and functions that controls memory management throughout the virtual memory. And it also has system interrupts and exception handling and breakpoints. Now, the second chip that we're going to talk about is the RAM. There's not really much to talk about with this. Basically, the PlayStation had a system memory of 2 megabytes of EDO DRAM. And pretty much that's about it for that chip. So we'll head on to the next one here. The PlayStation had a GPU that was a 32-bit Sony GPU designed by Toshiba. This handles the display of graphics control from a frame buffer and the drawing of polygons and textures. It also handled 2D graphic processing. It had 1 megabyte of VRAM and 2 kilobytes of texture cache. The PS1 could display resolutions in progressive with a minimum of 256 by 224 and the maximum of 640 by 240. As well as interlaced, it had a minimum resolution of 256 by 448 and a maximum resolution of 640 by 480. It had a color depth of over 16 million colors, basically true 24-bit color. It could draw up to 4,000 sprites per second on the screen and produce sprite effects as well. Now for the last chip we're going to talk about is the SPU, or the sound processing unit. This was a 16-bit chip made by Sony. It supported AD PCM sources with up to 24 channels, a sampling rate of 44.1 kHz, 512 kilobytes of RAM, PCM audio source, and it supported MIDI sequencing and had digital effects, which include pitch modulation, envelope looping, and digital reverb.
Did you hear? Sweet Tooth got parole today.
Yeah, I thought that clown was in for life. Sweet Tooth got out today.
He's probably living the high life.
Circuses, birthday parties.
No, actually, he's driving an ice cream truck.
Get out of town.
Sweet Tooth is back in Twisted Metal 3 with enough weapons to make any angry driver happy.
You go, Sweet Tooth.
So here's the PlayStation, guys. So basically, here's your power button, your reset button. This is your eject button to pop open the lid. Here's where your the top ports here are for your memory cards, as you can see, and then the bottom is for your controllers, 1 and 2. There's a side. It's got these fins. Imagine that, the fins thing again, coming back from the Atari. So here's the back of the PlayStation, guys. And so here we have an expansion port
Here we have a serial I/O port, and this is for the AV out and power. Now, if you guys don't want to mod your PlayStation, you can actually buy a device. I forgot what the hell it's called, but it's something that plugs into the expansion bay here. Let me open this up, because Sony never took advantage of this, but there are some hackers that have, and there's a device that you can plug into the back of this and put an SD card in it and basically play all the PlayStation games from an SD card. So that's a pretty cool hack. But anyway, guys, let's go ahead and get this thing plugged in. So when you first boot up the PlayStation, if you don't have a game in the drive, this is the screen that you'll get here. So you can load up, I have that memory card in there, so we can load up the memory card. And in here you can just manage the saves and everything on the card. And then if I had a CD in there, you can actually play a CD. So let's go ahead and put a game in here. So we're going to load up Gran Turismo 2. Alright guys, and another favorite game of mine is Drivers. And yeah, this is a quote unquote backup game here. I did have this game back in the day and somebody stole it, so you know, I did buy it once upon a time. But let's go ahead and load it up here.
The most intense. The most horrifying. It's in your blood. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. The nightmare continues, only from Capcom.
Alright guys, so we've reached the conclusion of the video here, and so I just kind of wanted to give you my own personal experience with the PlayStation. I remember that basically what had happened is I got a Sega Saturn when I was still living at my mom and dad's house. I was in like my last year of high school, and basically I graduated and moved out. I moved in with a roommate, and he had the PlayStation. And I started playing games on that, and I just realized how much better the PlayStation was graphically, how better the games were. Basically, it was to the point where when I played my Saturn, it felt like I was playing a toy, and that's basically how PlayStation was marketing it. It was an adult video game system and not something like a Sega or a Nintendo, that was for kids. So I did end up going and buying a PlayStation myself. I think that was like in, I want to say 96 or 97, because my roommate moved out and I didn't have the PlayStation anymore, and I love Gran Turismo, so I had to get a PlayStation to be able to play that because, it was an exclusive. And I just kind of fell in love with it, and it kind of led to me to where I didn't buy the Dreamcast when it launched, and I waited for the PS2 to come out. That's how much of a fanboy I became of the PlayStation at that point. So I just kind of wanted to say that to you guys, just kind of give you my own experience with the PlayStation. If you guys want to share, go ahead and put it below down in the comments too, and let me know your experience with the PlayStation. Also, guys, I just wanted to say that I did see I got a few more subscribers this week, and I wanted to say thanks to all you guys that are subbing to me. Please share, like, click that notification bell up top as well so you get notifications when I drop new content. Just remember, I drop stuff on Saturdays, which is like my main video, like this series. And then on Tuesdays, I do just a little small vlog video as well, just kind of explaining things in the channel, doing a little bit of gameplay stuff. My last one, I went to some arcade, kind of showed off an old arcade. So some pretty cool stuff there. But anyway, I just wanted to thank all you guys as well. And everybody have a good one now. Peace out.